comment section below. So moving on to my last story, one of Ghana's veteran actors, and for those who may not know, he started out as a musician, playing trumpet, and Kofi Adjorlolo has been on our screens for over 2-3 decades, if I'm not mistaken, and he's been very prominent in so many films, TV series, commercials, you can name it all. And he was recently interviewed on a podcast called the Real Talk, podcast. You can go and check and subscribe to their podcast on YouTube. Kindly do so. He was interviewed, and one of the statements he made was that Nollywood, it's wrong to claim Nollywood made Ghanaian actors famous. And I would like to read a little bit of what he said, and then I'll give my thoughts on that. So just a quick read. So he says that it's wrong to claim Nollywood made Ghanaian actors famous. Kofi Adjorlolo, and that's him in the picture. Veteran actor Kofi Adjorlolo has argued that Ghana's movie industry was already thriving and producing top talents before Nigerian filmmakers began collaborating with them. He made his statements while emphasizing that Nollywood cannot be credited for popularizing Ghanaian filmmakers. Speaking on the Real Talk podcast, he explained that many of Ghana's top talents had already made breakthroughs through local productions before Nigerian producers took notice. Through the Ghana movie industry, though the Ghana movie industry may be having its own problems, it does not mean that Nigerians made us. Ghana films made Ghanaian actors. Ghana movie industry and the movies produced made us popular before the Nigerian producers noticed and called us, he said. Ghana has produced some of the Africa's biggest screen icons such as Majid Michel, Van Vicker, Jackie Appiah, John Dumelo, Juliet Ibrahim, Nadia Buhari, and Yvonne Nelson. Though he acknowledged the business acumen and drive that have helped Nollywood flourish, Kofi Adjorlolo maintained that Ghanaians should not overlook their own contributions to the African movie scene. He added that although Ghanaian film industry may not be as visible as it once was, but work is still ongoing. Ghana movie is not down. Actors are acting daily. Producers are producing daily. Work is ongoing daily. Rather, it is the promotion and marketing that is lacking. And we got to fix that area, he noted. Yeah, so that is a good observation he has really made. And Kofi Adjorlolo has vast experience in this industry. And before I even give my thoughts, listen, he knows the industry better and he's been in it for that long. And I must concur or agree to what he's saying. Prior to Nollywood coming in to collaborate with some of the names he mentioned there, let's say from the Jackie Appiah to the Majid Michel, a lot of these people started from TV. Like you have Jackie Appiah, Majid Michel in particular, who started from the Things We Do for Love. And at a time, Things We Do for Love became so big to the extent that they were pop cultural icons in that era. From not just them, but you had other people who may not have necessarily translated onto the silver screen from the TV, screens, but they were very prominent in their own right in regards to the project they did. Things We Do for Love, and others went on to do other TV shows and all that. But prior to, even around the same era, you also had, I think, Venus Films, Miracle Films, all doing productions with them. And some of them had their names established before the collaboration era started, around the early, the mid-2000s to the early 2010s, where there was a lot of collaborations between Ghanaian production houses and Nigerian production houses. So a number of these actors, maybe even of that era, most of them were established. So that cannot be taken away from them. However, just as he stated, the challenge with our industry has always been with how well we, aside, the film, let's not take away from the fact that a poor production value of a film would lead to poor viewership. So that is there. But beyond that, how well we promote our films has always been lacking because the leverage we have to push the production out there is quite limited, maybe particularly in that era. But now all the platforms are available, from the YouTubes to multiple TV stations that exist in Ghana, and possibly also even beyond the shores of Ghana. But one of the things I've realized that a lot of African films, not excluding Ghana, but a lot of African countries promote their films whenever it's done through a lot of film festivals. And fortunately for us, we have a collective few who does, that do same. So you have the Fisherman, which will be screening. You have the burial of the funeral of Kwade. You have a lot of films who, after they are shot, they go on a film festival run first, giving the opportunity for the world to see what we have before showing in the cinemas. And a lot of filmmakers are not doing that. Maybe they don't feel their film is up to the production value to be showcased in front of the world through the film festival run. Maybe that's the case, or maybe they don't care about it. So that is also okay. But one of the things we should know is that if you don't even have the money to promote it on a larger scale as it should be, the film festival circuit is one of the ways you can do it to receive the necessary attention to it. That is not to say you won't spend money on that aspect. You would definitely spend money, but it will lessen maybe the massive burden of trying to do everything yourself. Because if your film festival run is very successful, the likelihood for the film to be picked up is high. And that will give the necessary attention to even the actors and the filmmakers behind the production. But beyond that, one of the things that we cannot take away from the fact that Nollywood did for some of our actors was that it gave them enough mileage than we could have done with ourselves. Because there was a point in time in Ghana where, just as Mr. Adjorlolo has said, we did hit some kind of a wall where there wasn't enough money to push into promotions. You are barely scraping by whilst even doing the production at the time you were shooting it, compared to even having enough money to do promotion. So it was a challenge. But with the wider and bigger markets of Nigeria, you realize that when there was a lot of collaboration, you had Nigerian films promoting their films here, whereas Ghanaian films also were promoting theirs there. As to the percentage-wise, I cannot speak to that fact because there's no data to support it. But it did give some form of more exposure to the Nigerian market, and I would say to a larger market beyond the two. And a lot of filmmakers were also very strategic, where one example is Shirley Frimpong Manso. When she's doing her production, she became very strategic in selecting actors from different countries whose industries were thriving, so that at a time when the movie is done, at least it will have the opportunity to screen in these markets. And a lot of the filmmakers also were doing the same, where if they are shooting a production, they have one Nigerian actor, one Ghanaian, and one South African, or a mix of whichever way they would want to go about it. And that gave them the leverage, the opportunity to be exposed into different markets. So all these played a role in giving more attention to the actors. But truth be told, the 2000s, in the late 90s to the 2000s and a larger part of the 2010s, a lot of Ghanaian actors were made popular by our own industry here prior to the collaboration of Nigeria with Ghanaian production houses. But with their collaboration and the bigger markets Nigeria had, it did expose them even further. In as much as, yes, and just as he said, it was as a result of the Ghanaian actors being known, being popular, from the Jackos to the Lil Waynes to the Majid Michel to the Ajeti Anans and all those people. It gave them the opportunity to be noticed, and then Nollywood started collaborating with those they wanted to collaborate with. So the Ghanaian filmmakers or actors were popular as a result of the black star films industry we have now. I mean, we had then and now, and then the collaboration helped boost their popularity even further into the Ghanaian market, to the extent that a lot of filmmakers are still working there. You have the Yvonne Nelsons and others still working there, but they made their name here from the Venus films and the Miracle films that they starred in. So it's right on point. Whatever Kofi Adjorlolo has said is actually exactly the case as it has been. So we have contributed our quota to the world one way or the other, but maybe because of the challenges we are still faced with in our industry, we tend to forget how far we have come. It's not the best. Yes, we could have done better, but unfortunately, the industry wasn't as viable or better as we find today. As we are today, we are still struggling. We can't take away from the fact that it is still not perfect. We are still working on it, but it is still getting better. But there's a lot more that ought to be done to move away from just who made who popular, but rather build a very viable, sustainable industry. And one of the things I would always say is that we need to have an integrated film market in Africa. One country's film industry is never big enough to sustain the business of the filmmakers in that country. I would even dare say not even Nigeria. It's not enough. If there's a complete integration of the total film market in Africa, you can imagine how wide and far we can go with our production. So that is something I wish and I hope will be taking a look at. The industry heads and even the country heads will be taking a look at, because the money we stand to make off the industry alone is massive. So yeah, what do you think about Kofi Adjorlolo's statement as to how as to the fact that we were already popular before Nollywood came in? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comments.